Good morning, evening, and afternoon, everybody. You are listening to episode 22 of the Strength and Motion Show, a podcast all about holistic and functional approach to health and fitness. I did meant to say, holistic. A holistic and functional health approach to health and fitness.
Health approach.
Moving on, today marks episode 22 and the mark of a new theme for the next few podcasts. As a long-term podcast listener, you have obviously listened to our first 5 episodes in which we talk you through the 4 pillars of hashtag the holistic way, which is also now hashtag the functional way. In these first 5 episodes, we walk you through the 4 pillars of movement, nutrition, sleep, and stress. Over the next few episodes, we'll be picking up where we left off. We are now going a little deeper into each of these pillars for you. This allows us to continue your education alongside being an opportunity for us to geek out more on health and fitness things. It's very exciting. So as always, let's welcome our co-host Navar with a mystery sound.
You go for it. It's going to be the same.
Oh, fingers crossed.
Oh.
Bomberclad.
Oh, no, it's just, yeah.
Isn't that a Jamaican swear word?
Yeah, I believe so.
How are you, Nav?
I'm great. I'm doing well. I actually just remembered a story.
How's your...
Bomberclad.
I think that's it. Go on.
I just remembered a story actually from today. When I was at FP doing my session, I park in this area.
FP is?
Functional Patterns.
Yep.
But I park in this area, normal car park, and it's in front of a shop, and it's a biltong shop. It's fantastic. Well, now I know it's a fantastic shop. But anyway, normally I'm in and out so quickly, so I don't disrupt any customers and what have you. And I always thought they didn't operate on a Saturday. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I come out, it's late, it was like 8:30, and I had a sign on my car saying, hey, please don't park here, private parking. And it's this laminated sign in the paper. And I'm like, all right, fair enough, that's my bad. So I went in there to give it back, finding out that it's a sick shop. So I ended up buying $120 worth of meat and biltong stuff. You know where I'm at. Everyone knows where I'm at with meat right now.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Anyway, I gave the card back, and the guy said it's the first time that's ever happened, that someone's given it back. Every other time people have thrown it just on the floor or ripped it up. People have ripped it up and got mad.
Really?
Yeah, and then it was just another sign. It was unfortunate sign of how... maybe self-righteous or how annoyed or aggravated people get by situations where I was completely in the wrong. I did park in private parking. It's a simple sign on my car. It's not a big deal. But it's interesting how people get really bothered by that. I'm like, look, sorry about that. And they'll apologetic to me. They're sorry they put the sign on my car because I was so polite about it.
Yeah, I bet you had did you walk in with a knife or something?
Yeah, I had my gun, but no.
Walked in with a balaclava. Why is everyone so nice to me?
But anyway, it was this interesting story because I thought it was just, fair call. Like, I parked in your private parking, I'll give you a sign back, and for that to be such an unusual thing for someone to do, I was shocked by that fact. Yeah,
we've definitely fallen behind on that general street compassion kind of thing, but hopefully it'll swing back.
Yeah.
I think it's I don't know. I was saying to Dylan, one of our coaches, that like all the introverts are they're the ones commenting on social media. There's a lot of abuse getting hurled around, and it's tough because some of it, a lot of it is done in that really light way and humorous, and we all love a joke, and there's a lot of things that I find funny as well. But there's such a it's pretty harsh out there, and that what I was saying is that I think a lot of people are unconsciously looking for a reason to blow up on something. They're looking for a reason to have that outburst because I think the general theme is that we're all a bit too stressed. Lol.
Yeah, well, interesting. We're talking about stress today. Yeah.
What an interesting segue to the podcast title, Mastering Stress, which is what this episode is. If you, as a recap, if you are a long time, obviously everyone's a long time listener on the show. But if you haven't, randomly, if you just stumbled across this, our first 5 episodes are where we start talking about our 4 pillars of movement, nutrition, sleep, and stress. And now we've done 21 episodes on all things health and fitness. We're actually keen to comb back through all of these similar topics, go back to these and go back over them and go deeper and dive deeper into these. So consider this episode like 5B. In a way, this is an extension of episode 5, which is our original holistic way / functional way podcast pillar episode. Hooray! Information. Are we ready to roll into it? Any other stories you got before we No,
No,
I don't.
no.
Let's get into it. So what we're going to do, we're going to pick up where we left off. So if you haven't listened to the first episode or it's been a while, then we're going to go through a little bit of a rundown, a little bit of a recap. So we're going to start with our key points that we covered in our original podcast. And the very first one we covered was negative stress versus positive stress. What we mean by that is sometimes stress is intentional, sometimes stress is unintentional.
Yeah.
Unintentional?
Yeah.
Unintentional. The stress is sometimes unintentional. A lot of times we have external factors, work and life stress, financial stress, reactive stress. Shit happens, things comes up, and this is what would be considered negative stress. It's something that we either don't want in our life or it doesn't serve us. And so we're figuring out a way on how to navigate that. We need to figure out how to navigate this stress in a calm and composed way. And one of the ways we do that is with positive stress. We use intentional stress, such as lifting weights. That's putting stress on the body, which allows the body to get more resilient and more adaptable to stress, which allows it to deal with that more reactive negative stress more efficiently. So training and meditation is somewhat of a mental stress. Keeping the mind focused is a really hard thing for people to do. So meditation really works, and breath work as well is we're a big fan of breath work, as we were just talking about before we hit record.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about the next point, Nav? High energy states and emotions.
So high energy states, emotions versus low energy states and emotions. So we're just linking to the most common states that people are experiencing and then the emotions that accompanying that as well. High energy states tend to be, well, more in the negative if we're looking at it from a sympathetic state, as in there is stress on the body, but it's not always negative. We dive into that a little bit.
There's a lot of details to it, but fundamentally,
And same thing with low energy states. That might be more in the parasympathetic, but that which could see as a positive, but then you might also have the depression, the real low energy
sadness
and emotion,
depression.
Exactly. And so the lines are more grey, but we did dive into that as well.
Yeah, trying to get then clarity on what's the difference between excitement and anxiety, and what's the difference between sadness and relaxing. You know, they're both the similar calm states, but there's a positive and a negative tone on that. We also talks about the side effects of constant stress. It's when we don't have time to relax and really allow our bodies to restore and recover, we start to have issues we start to age faster. You know, we start to get immune issues, or our immune function just isn't as strong, which means we get sick more often. We just tend to be more reactive to illnesses. Strength and fat loss issues, we tend to store more fat. We tend to struggle with building muscle mass, or even just sustaining muscle mass can be a challenge if we're constantly stressed. If we've heard of the term, we are constantly catabolic. We're in a stress state. And we also talked about how energy levels, obviously, if you're just running on stimulants, really, because you're just so chemically wound up rather than just running on fuel and nutrition and being recovered as well. So energy levels tend to suffer a lot when we are dealing with constant stress. And then Nav, bit of a rundown of the parasympathetic versus sympathetic nervous system. What are we talking about here?
Easy. So these are both two sides of the same coin, which is the autonomous nervous system, which is the automatic function of our central nervous system. And you had two sides of the coin. So you got the parasympathetic, which is the rest and digest, and you had the sympathetic, which is the fight or flight or freeze, etc. So yeah, two sides of the same coin. It is technically an automatic function of the nervous system, but there are certain practices that can over time adapt the nervous system and shift it and train it. And then also things we could do in the moment, such as reframing our thoughts, our beliefs, what we even think about, or our breath, to even shift that as well. But technically it is an autonomous function. And even things like better posture. We know that the way that we hold our body and how open we are, how closed we are, also impacts things like our cortisol, which is stress, and our testosterone, as well as impacting our diaphragm and our body's ability to expand and breathe. So posture is a big part of our not so automatic function.
Beautifully, well said. So that's really the recap of episode 5. We talked about negative versus positive stress. We talked about how we can have high energy states and emotional states like excitement and anxiety. One's positive, one negative. And we contrasted that to the low energy states when we talked about sadness and depression versus relaxing and being calm and composed. We covered side effects of constant stress and really that fundamental key understanding, the difference between being parasympathetic, when you're on your more calm and composed, your rested and digest state, when your body is able to rest and restore and recover, versus your stress state, your fight or flight, where you are more reactive, but your performance is also higher. So our training and our movement is often in that stressful state. What we're talking about is trying to navigate life so that we can get back out of that stressful state, back into parasympathetic. And then how do we maintain a parasympathetic state whilst in stressful environments, whether that's an argument, whether that's your stressful day, or whether that's just something within your life that is intense that instinctively makes your body drift or drive back into that sympathetic response. And we're using the skills that we have honed by meditating and the skills that we've honed by doing breath work or ice baths or anything that forces us to regulate ourselves so that we can stay sharp within that chaos. That's what we're talking about here, is learning and practicing techniques, and we're going to be delving into that. Practicing techniques on how we can refine and hone these skills so that when we're in the face of the chaos of our daily lives, we're able to remain in a better parasympathetic state. Mystery sound number 2, go Nav. All right. Yeah. There you go. So, how are we doing? Fucking awesome. Brilliant. We are doing absolutely brilliant. So what we're going to do now, we're going to start talking about the nervous system and behavior. This is really a thing that we talk to our coaches more than we talk to our clients. But as we discussed at the beginning of this podcast, we're getting deeper. We're diving deeper into these concepts and learning more about the nervous system and behavior. So everybody tends to be able to tell if someone's sad or happy, right? We have this intuitive sense about other people's moods and energy when we interact with them. Why is that, and what is actually happening? In every moment, your body, my body, our body is constantly dancing between that stressed and not stressed. We're dancing between the parasympathetic and the sympathetic response. We're also sliding on that scale of happy and not happy, and hot and cold and loud and quiet. We're just constantly fluctuating between all these different spectrums, these different scales. So the further we understand what is happening within our body as we fluctuate up and down, the more we can further understand the bodies of the people that we are interacting with when we talk to them, when we in person, face to face. That allows us to have a greater sense of intuition. So when we start to talk about our practices, what we're doing is we're improving our intuition. We're improving our self-awareness. And again, the self-awareness improves when we practice things like meditation, we practice things like breath work, or we just pay attention to our training and we pay attention to our movement, which is why we're a big fan of Naudi's slogan, which is train intentionally, move.
Train intentionally, not habitually.
Oh, not habitually. Yeah, I was like, be habitual. No, don't be habitual.
Don't.
Yeah, which is great because a lot of when you delve deeper into the anatomy of our anatomy is in a way is designed against us. Gravity is against us, so we really want to build strong and functional bodies to be healthy, and then master stress. Lol, great segue, Josh. So this is why when you get in a relationship with someone or you get a new pet, which is I just had to put that in there because we also got a new pet yesterday.
A pet? What
yeah,
did you get?
We got a puppy. Got a puppy for my parents, but we'll stay.
I'm surprised you didn't talk about that at the start.
Yeah. I just wanted to get into it. Then we can talk shit at the end of the podcast. You know what I mean? Want to give the listeners their value. So this is why when we get into a relationship with someone or get a new pet like a puppy, you start to sense their mood before they happen, or you can sense when your dog wants to go to the toilet. For example, we're starting to notice the trends within their body language, their poos, their moods and their postures.
Don't become that aware.
It's because that dog shat on the carpet last night. So the new journey begins for us and for you. It's now time to deepen your understanding of your body so you can become more aware of what is stressful and what is not. What we have on our screens is a very special list, and this is a list of common organs and their relationship to stress. This is a list that we teach to our coaches to help them understand stress in our clients better, and now we're going to be teaching it to you. So this list is called the common functions of the autonomic nervous system. So we have a list here, and it's kind of like a table. I guess Nav and I were looking at a table. On the left-hand column, there's 3 columns. On the left-hand column, we have the region of the body, things like the eyes, the heart, the brain. Then the next column, we have all the parasympathetic functions, which is the more calmer functions. Then the column over is the sympathetic. So what we're doing for each region of the body or the brain, we're discussing the parasympathetic function or behavior and the sympathetic function or behavior. So as a recap, when we're in parasympathetic, we're calm, we're grounded, we're in rest and digest, and we're more in a thrive state. When we're in our sympathetic response, we are more stressed, our body's more elevated, we're more in fight or flight, and we are in also a survive state. We are more in survive rather than thrive. So pay attention when we talk about these things. We'll be mentioning some things that are happening in the parasympathetic response, and we'll be talking about some things that happen in the sympathetic response. And I want you to think about whether this is positive or negative as well, because that's really what it's all about. So Nav, what are some things that are happening in the brain in our parasympathetic response, our calm and our grounded side?
Well, we have more of our prefrontal cortex that is active.
What are those big words?
Well, which is the
Oh my
front.
God.
So the front part of our brain.
The front part of our brain.
Which allows us to have logical thinking, rational thinking, to be present and to have memory and learning, and ideal for mental processing.
Yes, very good.
We are more calm and able to process logically through the prefrontal cortex.
We are more evolved than chimpanzees. That's what it is.
Yes, because we have a prefrontal cortex.
Yeah, and they don't. So our intellect comes from our forehead. That's why you got to protect it.
Yeah.
Protect your forehead.
That's why the hardest part on our whole entire body is this little...
Is it? I thought it was my cold heart.
No, we know that's real soft. That's
It is a little soft.
Sounds crying.
I got a puppy. So, on the sympathetic side of things for the brain, we are more functioning from our fear center. It's our amygdala. So, if you can imagine some people, if you're on the screens, if you're on the YouTube watching this, I'm putting my hand up and I'm putting kind of like my fist in the air, and that's my whole forearm is representing the brainstem. And so I'm like a lollipop notion. I'm representing the area around the top of this, which is the brain area, right? And so the amygdala is like kind of in the center. It's right near where it plugs in to this, into the brainstem. And then the prefrontal cortex is like right away at the front. The reason I'm talking about the location of the amygdala is because it's closer to the brainstem, which is where our fear memories are stored in the amygdala, which means the signals that go into the body are faster, only literally a micro fraction of a second, but they get it. Those signals go into the body faster than the messages from the prefrontal cortex because it's further away from the brainstem. So when we're in our fear response, our sympathetic response, we need faster reaction times, which is why physiologically we have better reaction in our training, in our stress response, but where our body is instinctively and our mind is instinctively operating from a more reactive faster place, which is our emotional and fear center. So we're operating from our fear center. We also tend to have long-term thinking because it's, have I been in this situation before and what did I do to get out? That also means we sometimes get long-sightedness because we're like, how do I get out of this situation? We also then can have more emotional because of the amygdala response. We're more, the amygdala function. We can have more emotional thinking and we can have therefore more irrational thinking as well.
What, they're linked?
Yeah, who knew? Who knew? Impulse control. So that is the sympathetic response for the brain. What about the eyes? Oh, I jumped ahead, didn't I? Sorry. I just talked about long-sightedness, didn't I?
Yeah.
Fucked it. All right.
That's okay.
What's happening in the eyes?
The sympathetic?
What's happening in the eyes for the parasympathetic?
Okay, more focused vision. So your eyes could adjust, your pupils could adjust to light greater. It's just you can really tunnel in closer on something, because the opposite, as you already ruined, is the sympathetic, which is long-sighted. But the pupils dilate, but they want to be able to see longer and more to see if there's further threats in their surrounding.
Exactly right. Yeah. That is exactly right. So it's very interesting. One thing that, and we're going to go further down with some other organs, but one thing that there's a little grey area where sometimes the pupils dilating can be from more in the sympathetic, and sometimes pupils that be in the dilate can be more in the parasympathetic, because when we get down to talking about arousal, there is a thing about arousal is also linked to pupils being dilated, which is why low light dining settings also linked to, that's why like candlelight's more romantic. So where arousal is also linked to some of the parasympathetic as well. So we'll get to that anyway. So
arousal's a tricky one. It
is. There's all the, well, that's what, I guess that's what it's the anticipation of that excitement, right? Because that's what a lot of intimacy is the ups and the downs. You know, it's the both. It's the both scales of it. It's the anyway. Anyway, we also, what's happening in the heart? What is happening in the heart in our parasympathetic response, Nav?
Which is more our rest and digest. So that's more our standard resting heart rate as well. Heart rate is a little bit more steady and relaxed.
Exactly right. And then obviously contrast to that in the sympathetic response, we have a higher heart rate because we are more stressed. That's more performance-based heart rate. What about the lungs and the breath then? What's happening in parasympathetic?
Same standard breathing, long, slower breaths, and a much more calmer breathing.
Absolutely. And then obviously in contrast to that, again, we have tighter, faster, and often shorter breathing, which is why, for example, common sports like diving, Olympic diving, and tennis, you can really observe a lot of athletes doing some sort of breath work to calm them because they're either trying to drop their heart rate in between their sets or right before they execute their yump. They're going to yump off the board right into the water and try not to make a big splash. So lungs, breath, shorter breathing, digestion. What's happening in the body when we're more calm?
Or in the rest and digest state.
Yes. What would be happening with digestion?
We're digesting.
In the
we are more active in that rest and digest state.
Yes, absolutely.
Which is why it's good to have a mindful eating practice to sit down and eat your food and be present with your food because otherwise you're going to be in a stress state. You're not going to be able to digest that food as efficiently and effectively.
Exactly right. And then obviously on the other side of that is basically what we're getting is your metabolism is more active when you're resting. It's less active when you are in a high stress state because your liver is more interested in sending glucose to the working muscles. So you're just trying to pump sugar into the body so you can push, pull, kick, run, jump, climb, roll, twist, whatever you need to do in order to deal with the perceived threat. So your body's in literal performance mode, which is again why training is so good for that. And that's why a lot of training is built around glucose and sugar for that exact need. You're literally just trying to fuel the movement necessary. And so the body ain't worry about digesting your spinach or anything if you're trying to do this push, pull, run, jump, climbs business. So that is what's happening to your digestion in your sympathetic response. What's happening to our sexual organs? Oh, what's happening to our what's happening to our
Bomber clot.
in parasympathetic?
It's active. So we're the beginning of arousal. We're getting a little bit aroused. Our sexual organ is starting to work a little bit. You're nice and grounded, and you're feeling the moment,
and you're a bit of and then you literally just progressively climb and climb and climb and climb to the axe. You climax at the into the sympathetic space. Yeah, the more elevated the body gets, that gets you up into that sympathetic state. And then what actually happens for the males is that kind of peak sympathetic point is that point of ejaculation, and then it's followed by the deep parasympathetic that often is so deep. It's often so deep. Yeah, that the males just have a really lovely sleep that can be sometimes be interrupted by someone else in the bed being like, "What are you doing? Wake up!" So
I want to talk.
Yeah. So that is what's happening in the sexual organs, and that's what we talked about again. That there's that semi-grey area where, because it is such a scale that we're going up and down, and that's why in tantric practices you have the breath work to then pull the person back out of the sympathetic state into. So you're pulling them away from the ejaculation point, but the body's still in that elevated state, and so the grey areas make for such an experience, which is why it's a full thing. And so that's an interesting thing about pupils dilating as well, which I'm keen to learn a little bit more about, to be honest. What's happening with our muscles in the parasympathetic?
This is why going to the parasympathetic state is so important, is because it creates that relaxed, calm experience of the muscles. And if we're training, in most cases, the training that we do at the gym or for a sport is in the sympathetic state. So our heart rate's high, the liver's working to pump glucose, and our muscles are in a catabolic state in most cases at high performance, right? And so for us to take us back to the anabolic state where it heals and regenerates and strengthens, we need to be in that parasympathetic state. So the muscles are relaxed and calm. They could be a little bit more flexible and mobile and fluid as well. And you might be able to find more comfortability in your posture. You might be able to find a bit more of a center within your posture as well. So, and that's why it's extremely important. In many cases, we want more of that than we want in the sympathetic to heal and recover.
Absolutely. And then again, in contrast again, on the more sympathetic side, we have our muscles. They are tighter, which often means they can be stronger. They have a higher output. They are also more responsive, and they're also more faster as well. So it is clearly a great time to go push, pull, kick, punch, run, climb something. which is attack or be attacked. That's really what we're talking about. We're just mammals and vertebrates with these organs that just ramp up. The engine just goes. What about? This is my favorite part. I love these last four, I guess. This last two columns, 2 rows. What's happening with our personality? What are personality traits associated with parasympathetic?
Yeah, so we got calm, grounded, focused, attractive in a sense where there is a bit of a pull, a magnetism to an individual that might be a little bit more calm and grounded. And maybe it's because there's this inner peace or inner confidence that might come across from their stoicism or their stillness that might find them attractive. And so it is in that pillar of personality. It's also very interesting because this is a conversation I have with a lot of clients as well, because if a client's struggling to heal their body physically, I tend to have that conversation about their personality, their own emotions. And I go, well, have you considered maybe exploring your own ability to be calm and grounded on an emotional level, to calm and ground your mind? And that might be the answer to healing your body in some ways. Because if someone can't heal their mind and relax, somewhat shift their personality, and that's where some people struggle with health and fitness, is because they struggle to shift their personality. The guy want to lose 10 kilos, not recognizing their personality might have to shift a little bit for that to occur. So I love these. That's why I love personality and emotions as well, because when working with clients, you tend to have to get them, even if they're lifting heavy. I have like clients that I tell them, like, no, you need to act tough now. You need to be strong mentally, think strong thoughts. So you have to access that part of yourself, because it does live there. It does live there, which is really good. That book that we talked about, The Courage to Be Disliked, also addresses that as well. It's hard for some people, which is understandable. It's very hard for people to let go of the part of themselves, because that also offers a bit of psychological or emotional stability, that part of their routine or their lifestyle, which is that's where that courageous aspect comes from. But anyway, that's a conversation for another podcast.
Another podcast. So on the other side of that, we can now imagine that in contrast to calm, grounded, focused, and attractive, we would then have an erratic, more anxious, shaky, stiff, less responsive, excitable, crazy, and energetic personality as well. And so that's why we used attractive very loosely before, because some of those things like crazy, energetic, excitable, that they might be attractive to some people. What we're getting at is that there is polarity, and also sometimes that's what the polarity attracts, is that people that are looking for more chaos in their lives, they'll gravitate to a more chaotic personality, and a chaotic personality is looking for more to be more grounded, or they feel like they need to be more grounded. That's when they gravitate more towards those people. Lastly, before we go to a camera reset, which I reckon we're probably about 45 seconds out, let's talk about the emotions of parasympathetic.
Yep, so we have happiness, joy, pleasure, calm, sad, depressed, low energy. So the top 4 being happiness, joy, pleasure, they're more the higher, they are higher emotions in a sense, higher energy emotions, but still quite grounded. Happiness, joy, and pleasure. As we know, pleasure is the arousal. Then we start moving into even slower, calm, then real slow, even depression and low energy is where it becomes a negative.
Yeah, beautiful. And then on the other side of that, we have excitement, angry, and just general high energy can be also positive or negative. Oh yeah, we lost the camera. That's right. We were so close. Only a couple seconds out. Excitement, being angry, or having those high energy, whether it's positive or negative, that's always a high load on the nervous system, and it's always a sympathetic response. So that is due for that's a cue for a camera reset. We're going to camera reset, and we're back to you in a very uno momento. And we're gonna oh no, sorry, wrong. Mystery sound number 4.
5. Oxymoron.
Whoops. Well, we're going to skip that one. We won't be using that one. I like this one. Oh, wait. Oh, they're both the same. What was this one?
Kenzo from the 6.
No, we're not going to use that one either. I don't trust. I don't.
Yeah.
If it feels like the further we go down, the worse they get.
Definitely.
All right, we're going to lay there. All right. So, with so many different types of meditation out there, what would be the core goal of meditation when it comes to mastering stress? Nova.
Awesome. So number one, training the mind to be focused. As someone, I was diagnosed with ADHD at the age of 7. So I was a beta test when ADHD became a massive thing. I was one of only one with ADHD in my initial primary school, and then went on to other less better schools. So there was a handful more ADHD kids. But the reason why I share that is because we're in a world right now where there's a lot of noise and information and ADHD and poor focus and all sorts of neurodivergence is coming up to the surface now, and people unable to read or struggling with reading and counting and numbers. So training the mind to be focused is really important. As someone that's done that themselves, I genuinely believe meditation has been a big catalyst for training my focus and training my mind and body to be calm. Just to how to relax it, how to connect to it and relax it, because otherwise it's just overly stimulated. And if we don't actually train it, if we don't meditate to train the body to be calm, then in most cases our body's just going to get stuck in this perpetuating cycle of stress and life and running around. And the benefit to meditation is just another routine that we get to commit to create self-discipline, self-courage, self-confidence as well.
Yeah, beautiful. That was a really cool little story. And can you share me a little general timeline of your overall? Oops, I leant away from the mic for a second. Scratch my butt.
That's not how you do a podcast.
Can you give me a general timeline of your overall experience of meditation? Because I love to hear these stories, because it kind of talks how people were led to different points and how they shifted and tried alternative things. So I'm really keen to hear about that.
Cool, beautiful. I'll smash through it. It's been a long journey. I'm 33 soon.
Yeah.
And I started when I was 19. I started by laying down on my floor in the dark in my room, being completely still, breathing, and just listening to my thoughts, asking myself questions, finding answers. And I would tend to follow that by journaling. So that's how it very first started out. I then practiced meditation with many mentors, teachers, courses, retreats, seminars, workshops, reading books ever since. So I've been doing it for the last 14 years, and I still do it today. And it's a never-ending practice. And there's, like you mentioned earlier when we were talking before the podcast, there's so many different types of meditations that could be done. And so the main ones that come to my mind that have really benefited me are silent meditation, guided, breath, body, emotions, the unknown, questions, and affirmations. These are all slightly different. And so a silent meditation is something where you just be in complete silence. Then you would have guided meditation that will, any sort of guidance from maybe even yourself. You could even guide yourself through meditation by taking yourself on a specific journey. The breath by focusing on the breath, the body by focusing on the body, emotions, focus on emotions, the unknown, which is what I get from Joe Dispenza, and he focuses on meditating on the unknown, and that forces you to separate from the known. Whenever known thoughts or feelings arrive, you go, I've already been here, let's move, and you keep moving until you fall into an unknown, which is really cool. Questions, focusing on a specific question or challenge or problem, and affirmations, so something that I use a lot of, and sometimes I still use affirmations where it will be a sentence or a phrase that is affirming something that I want to experience or am experiencing. So they're all the different meditations that I've done and still continue to do. When I started out, I really had to swing the pendulum the other way. And I say this to a lot of clients as well. If you're someone that's been not prioritizing your health and fitness for 20 plus years, and maybe you've built some really negative, unresourceful habits, maybe you've gained quite a bit of body fat, and you have really poor cardiovascular health and strength and muscle mass, it's going to take quite some time to swing it the other way. And that was me. Before meditation, I was this ADHD kid who was a drug addict that had a lot of problems, and I had to really swing the pendulum. So I started off heavy. I started getting straight into the practices, did it every single day. I meditated more than regularly every single day, and I did a lot of courses, workshops, etc. Now I do some integrations here and there to reset and reconnect. I still do a practice every day, but it's not as intense as it used to be.
Yeah.
And I share that because for beginners, you might only need to start off with 10 to 20 minutes of stillness.
Yeah.
I think for most people, that's where you start off. And I would probably recommend starting off in complete silence. I reckon just commit to doing 10 to 20 minutes or trying to even... I honestly think it's better to go to the very hardest point, which I would say maybe a seated meditation, cross-legged, in complete silence. And I get all my clients to start off there to really confront a part of themselves that they're fearful of and to get a feeling for it. It just gives them an idea of maybe they can do it. I've had some people that they can do that. Very rarely, but sometimes they might be able to do 10 minutes of complete stillness. Maybe their back's up against the wall, cross-legged. But for most people, it's probably going to be some insight into the fact that they're quite scared of themselves. They're quite scared to be alone. They're quite scared to be in silence and quite scared to get to know themselves. I think coming to that awareness has been really beneficial for people that I've worked with anyway. So in many cases, I'll let them do that and practice that. And then many times it will be quite an uncomfortable experience and they need some warming up. And that's when I'll get them to start doing some guided meditations. We have our own ones, so email us and we can hit you up with some guided meditations.
SMA app.
SMA app. So if you want to be a part of that, just hit us up and we can sort you out. But you could also just do guided meditations on YouTube if you're interested. You could focus on your breath. You could focus on an affirmation. You could create an affirmation that you want to get a new job. You write a affirmation to yourself that makes you confident and strong and powerful in achieving that result. Speak about it as if it's present tense. I am now this role. I am now this business owner or whatever that career choice is. And you can just focus on that affirmation. Or you could ask yourself questions. But that's probably the best way to start off as a beginner is go silent, test it out, test the waters, see if you could do it, see how uncomfortable it is, then do some sort of guided meditation and maybe do 10 to 20 minutes 3 to 5 times a week and commit to that. I would even say for at least 3 months, but I would probably say a year minimum. But that would be my recommendation.
Yeah, no, it's great. You do have to commit.
Yeah,
it is one of those things. The needle doesn't tip, and I definitely was surprised that I think I did about maybe 3 years on and off of like tackling the 30-minute meditations, thinking that that was going to build me to get to the 60. And when we did that retreat where we just committed to the three 60-minute meditations, seated meditations per day for a couple of days, when I was in that, I'm like, there was never any way I was going to build to this. I remember I was sitting there after the first 45 minutes. I'm like, I just had to crank it out. And I'm here. And then the next one, I'm also here. And I'm getting like excited about it because I was so shocked at how quickly I adapted to sitting meditate. It was really the first two. And then after that, they were just all like the last half of the second, I was settled. They're not easy, but they definitely weren't like fucking life threatening.
That's what you thought they were.
I did 360-minute meditation, and when I look at them, I'm like, it was hard, but it's like the hard thing is really choosing to do that on a regular basis and just living a calm and easy life. That's the hard thing. Anyway,
which is the point of all those
things to do, so many things to buy.
Which is the point of all those meditations, right? That's what I always reminded myself as well. The point of meditating for me was to be able to be calm. It was the ability to make better decisions when I hadn't in the past, and I initially was motivated by moving away from past regrets. Now I'm also motivated and inspired by making better choices, as I already have and reaped the benefits of that. And so for me, I always had to remind myself that's the purpose of it. Don't get stuck in this trap of just meditating all the time for no point in meditation. Meditate for the point of being better at focusing and being present and making better choices when you need to or when you should or where you want to. And that's what I remind myself every single day.
Yeah, very, very good. Very, very good. Actually, we talked about it before, but I'm like always always excited to meditate more.
Yeah.
And always also find a reason to not meditate more sometimes as well. However, doing this getting back into the saunas has like really brought back that love for that seat again as well. Just sitting in just like marinating and feeling the body just like, I don't know how to describe it, just sitting there in that stillness and the silence, but there's so much going on.
Yeah.
There's so much, and I'm like, whoa.
I go on full sauna journeys, especially by myself in the garage. I always did it in darkness, so I couldn't see anything outside my sauna. And then I always had red light, but now I'm doing blue light. But I had the green light, the red light in the sauna, and I can't see anything. And I put music up so loud that I can't hear anything. And I'm just it's like I'm in a time box.
Wow.
It's sick. And I just meditate. Sometimes I do foam rolling or massaging, move my body. But I go on trips, man. I either have a full like spiritual, emotional journey, or maybe I'll solve problems and do business. But I love it.
You're just in the garage.
In South Guildford.
Just a guy in a box like, whoa!
I think about my neighbours hearing me sometimes.
But look, honestly, I think that's what I think what makes meditation such a beautiful thing, that it's taught me that I really can have everything in the moment. Because it's just like the thing that probably my most impactful, I guess, realization from meditation and sitting in stillness and silence was was the juice worth the squeeze? Was when my grandma, she had a heart attack, and we were sitting in the lobby, and we sat in the lobby of not the lobby, whatever you call I don't know. We were in a room with a lifeless body, and we were allowed to be in that room for however long we wanted. But once we left that room, we were not allowed to re-enter that room. That was that final, and that was a really that was a very big experience. But because it was like 1 a.m. or something, it was like the situation will happen at 11 at night. The amount of time that I've sat in silence and meditating, I was able to sit in a really strong and calm and composed state because it was mum that passed. But I was able to just to literally sit in silence in the corner of that room for like, I don't know, it might be 4 or 5 hours till about 2, 3 in the morning. And it was, I don't even know what time it was, but it didn't matter. Because in the moment we're there, I'm like, I'll be the last to leave, and I knew, and the whole time I was actually sitting in gratitude for a lot of it, for being, I'm like, fuck, I'm so glad I've done this, because this has given me the experience it's given me this experience. And that was, I only ever got that was a realization that came like, I don't know, 10 years after my first ever real meditation. It was, and it's just, the juice the juice is worth the squeeze, is my favorite saying. Like, the juice is worth the squeeze. Moving on, I really want to talk about a bit of breath work. We've talked about meditation because they're so intertwined. I really want these listeners to have more of an understanding of what's out there, how they can go about it, and how they can interrelate it with the breath work and the meditation. Interrelate it and integrate it.
Yeah, beautiful.
Far away.
Awesome. So I'll dive into how I do breathwork with my clients, the different types of breathwork, and also how breathwork and meditation integrate with one another, and how I tend to do that, how we do it as well, because we all pretty much do the same practices, especially SMA as coaches. All the coaches here do the same stuff. But the number one that I think is really good is the Wim Hof Tumo breathing. The reason why I think this is so powerful is it's more fast in-house because you're trying to really oxygenate the body. I think the benefit to it as well is you're teaching the diaphragm in the body to breathe. You're teaching your breathing muscles to move and contract and release repetitively, and I think that's a really powerful thing for our body as well. So I really like that. However, I think for some people that might not be the right route as well, because it might be too aggressive. They might be better off learning how to breathe or get more breath by going on a little jog or a hike, or something that actually is going to stimulate heavy breathing through movement. And that's from my experience anyway. I don't always give Wim Hof to everyone because of that. And sometimes I give Wim Hof to people and it's too much initially, so I then regress them into box breathing, which is like 4 seconds in, 4 seconds out, 4 second hold, 4 second 4 second hold, 4 seconds each point.
Everything's
in, pause, out, pause, right?
And then there's a 5. No.
Yeah, no.
Simon says
So I'll then get them to do box breathing because that's teaching them how to find every edge of the breath. And if you want to take that to another level, you could then get that upwards of 10 seconds each edge. I think my PB was 14 seconds when I was doing my hypnosis course, but that was tough. It was questionable 14 seconds sometimes. I wasn't the one counting them, but sometimes I was like, am I really doing it 14? But box breathing is a really good one. Same thing as a 6-second breath, which is what James Nestor talks about in his book, which is technically 5.6 second breath in, 5.6 second breath out for 5.6 breaths per minute. So it's this perfect trilogy. The benefit to this breath work is it finds that center between the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. And so it's the ideal breathing rate for us on a day-to-day basis for our heart and for our body and our nervous system. So you could even practice that 6-second breathing because that will teach you how to then regulate your breath on a day-to-day basis. And then you also have guided breath works, observational breath work as well. But most of the time I get my clients to practice nasal breathing as the sole foundation. I get them to also practice mouth breathing at points, but in most cases, people need to practice nasal breathing. And so even if it's Wim Hof, box breathing, 6-second breath work, whatever it is, I personally do it all through my nose. Very rarely do I practice mouth because I don't really need to. Most of the time, my mouth breathing might occur if I'm doing heavy cardiovascular training. I'm just like at that edge and I can't really control it. I might have like 3 mouth breaths, but then I try and come back to the nose. But as a breathing practice, I think it's the perfect time to intentionally practice nasal breathing. So I get my clients to practice nasal breathing. I first get them to stand and open up their posture, learn what it's like to actually breathe while standing into their ribs and especially into the back of their ribs while standing. The amount of clients that I get just even standing there in an upright position, opening up their diaphragm and breathing into their back, the amount of times they even cramp and can't hold that position because they struggle to extend from that part of their spine. And they just don't breathe deep enough into the diaphragm. We've experienced it. I'm sure you've experienced it. I've experienced it where I started practicing breath work and the diaphragm and the ribs and the back and everything just starts to hurt just from breathing. So if you're someone that's getting into it, start with that. Start practice breathing maybe in front of in the mirror where you can see your posture. You can make sure that you're as symmetrical as possible. It's okay to be asymmetrical, but for this practice, try and find symmetry, especially with your ribs. Make sure you're not tilting or what have you. And try and practice breathing to your back of your ribs, the side of your ribs, front of the ribs, and just do that in and out through your nose. Practice breathing quick. Practice breathing 4 seconds at each point of the breath, and practice breathing in 6 seconds, breathing out for 6 seconds. I get most people to do that. If you want to do more breathing practices, you could YouTube Wim Hof, and you could do his 11-minute video, or you could just do 10 minutes of either practice by laying down or seated or standing. You can also hit us up when we have some breathwork videos as well.
We got some sick stuff.
And then just integrate into your everyday lift. Every time you lift, So make sure when you're lifting, have your breathing integrated and bring awareness to your breath daily and hopefully have a regular breathing practice. But that's what I give to every client of mine.
Very good. Very good. That is the practical list on breathwork, and we really recommend that you should try and bookmark this segment what we just talked about, or if you can kind of bookmark it if you're watching the YouTube video of what we talked about, and make that a list. Make that a list of things for you to try. Try the Wim Hof, try the box breathing, try the guided breathworks, try everything, and really see how it is for you. And that's what we really wanted. The more you understand you and the different styles, they lead you to different things, and you'll find that you might loop back to a certain style at one chapter of your fitness / self-growth journey, and then the next time you're on a different style. So that's really that's what we've got time for today. That is a really dense podcast, and that is technically. We've still got more that we can talk about. There's a lot that we really want to talk about. So, look, in summary, we have covered a lot about our parasympathetic and our sympathetic nervous system. We've gone really deeper into what's actually happening within the body and in the organs. And if there really was one takeaway from this podcast, it really is those meditation breathwork practices. Is just try them and add them into your routine and be committed to them. And if you can really spend the time doing that, you'll intuitively figure out how to integrate that further and more deeply into your lifestyle. So with that in mind, should we even risk it with the next mystery sound? Should we
What do you mean? Nah.
I don't even want to.
Bad
I don't
one.
even. Are there any final sign-off notes, Nav? Would you like to share anything?
Are we doing mystery?
Yeah, I actually forgot about that, but yes, we are. Yeah, are you ready to do your?
Should we do that? Can we smash that out? Do we
Yeah. Nav, I thought you said you forgot to.
I know, I got something, but...
Oh yeah. Never let them know your next move.
yeah, no, I do have something. I grabbed creatine.
Creatine. All right.
So originally my idea was to bring my nose strips, because how perfect would it have been for this podcast to have my nose strips. However, I couldn't find them, which I was really annoyed about because I was really excited to wear them for the podcast. I was like, I'm going to breathe so good. I'm going to be switched on, but nope, I got creatine instead. Big fan of creatine. I've been taking it for years. It's one of the most studied products ever in the world. It's just great for energy, for water, absorption within the body. There's a lot of studies coming out in regards, so it's good for performance, for muscle mass and energy and performance, but there's a lot of studies coming out now about it neurologically as well, and for the brain and for depression and for anxiety. So a lot of people are now taking creatine because of their brain and their mental health as well. But it's such a cheap product, it's easy to get, and you only need 1 scoop a day, and you get so many benefits from it. So definitely recommend getting your hands on some creatine. I think you need to eat about 1 kilo of meat to even get a scoop of creatine a day.
Breakfast.
Hey?
There's breakfast for you.
Yeah, that's my breakfast, so I have no problem. But hey, I know a lot of people talk about being scared of animal products and protein and creatine because of the creatinine that is done in the kidney. As someone that's been on meat and eggs every single day and taking creatine, my creatinine and my kidney function actually improved during that time, but I think there's other factors to that. So if someone is scared of creatine and meat having issues on their kidney, there's other factors at play. So maybe explore trying some creatine and see how you feel, because you might gain some benefits from it, and it's cheap and easy to take.
Yeah, nice. Beautiful. I love creatine too. Here we go.
Mystery item that
Mystery item. No, I did actually bring mine. I did, yeah.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
oh, you actually ready?
Yeah. I have my horse blinkers. Cha-ching. These are... You're like, what is it?
Yeah. These are AirPods.
Yeah, they're my AirPods case. This has been... I now carry this on me. This is my new. It's my new. I carry this with my phone and my keys, and my wallet. It's a new addition, and I've gone back to the phase of using these more. I love AirPods for both the silence and the non-silence. So most of my personal growth with meditation experience has been from silent meditations and running in silence and nose breathing. However, my latest hack is using my putting the AirPods in, putting them in, but not playing anything.
My favorite thing to do.
Yeah. It's my don't fucking talk to me.
And you'll never know.
Oh yeah, because what I've done is I've done really well, and I've trained my ability to focus and be silent in the bush when I'm running. I've done it in silent when I remove myself from society, but I haven't done it enough when I'm in society, and I haven't done it enough when I'm in the chaotic places. And so I run around the gym, and I'm always got my earphones in, but I'm actually not listening to anything ever. My phone's on charge in the office. So.
Everyone's going to know now.
Yeah, they're all going to know. But mate, what I'll do is do you know what I even do when people come up to me? I even double tap.
I chose the music on.
Yeah, there's nothing playing. But
I've been there many times.
Oh, look, it's good. It's good. It's been really helpful. And also for the record, as I've been getting back into meditation, I have been using my earphones a lot more lately, playing music or binaural beats or just some fucking whale sounds or whatever. Just, don't go there. But it's been really good. So that's my mystery item, is my AirPods.
Beautiful.
My earpods. Thank you very much for another wonderful episode, everybody. We will see you in the next episode, and I don't know which one it's going to be, but it's one of the next 3 pillars with the intermediate stuff. Peace out. Much love.
Goodbye.